And we're back with more Tal Memorial Blitz action. Once again, this event took place in 2021, right after the Grand Swiss. Here we have Arjun Erigaisi continuing to crush it and make a name for himself as maybe the rising star from India, not named Pragnananda or Nihal Sarin, who people forgot might be the low-key favorite to follow in Vishy Anand's footsteps as the next world chess champion from India. Anyway, Anton Korobov is like, I'm tired of that story, Dan. I got work to do here against the youngster, and I'm already in a rough King's Indian here. I'll play c6 instead of c5, and I'm already thinking this is headed toward the type of position you don't want to play against a young super talent who is primed to attack. Passive moves like c6 and knight to c7, rather than typical ideas like c5 followed by knight c7 and b5, more of a Benoni type of way to strike back, can really get you in trouble if you're playing these types of passive moves and white has time to develop. Because when you overextend a pawn structure in the center, usually what could get you in trouble are moves like even e5 and c5. e5 right away here doesn't look great with an Averbach King's Indian that was played by Erigaisi, meaning the bishop on g5 is pinning the knight to f6. But the point is, if you don't strike back against a big pawn center before the pieces can develop, you only make matters worse for yourself, because once the pieces have filled those holes by getting developed, now advances start to really come with firepower. They're not just a slap in the face, if you will. They're much more of a full kind of Mike Tyson punch. And so this type of position with the two knights in front of black structure, rather than moves that strike back against the dark squares, again, I'll say it one more time, your c5s, your e5s in these types of King's Indians, this can kind of start to spell a disaster. This is a recipe that could become very, very not so tasty, to follow up on my recipe metaphor. Rook to b8 finally prepares b5, but Erigaisi's already got to be looking at e5 here, as well as d5. Moves that kick the ponies back are what you do, right? You get a big center, and now you use it. In this case, it is the size that matters, because more pawns, meaning a bigger center, meaning black is not happy with his choices. It's not over yet, so don't get me wrong. I'm reading the tea leaves here, and I'm seeing the massive space advantage that Erigaisi has, and getting pretty excited about the potential tactics. Korobov's time usage in a blitz event also not suggestive that he's super thrilled. The knight goes back to e8. White can either develop here with knight e2. You can also still consider moves like d5. He does indeed complete his development. There is one shot here. Looks like black could actually play the move g5 here, believe it or not, undermining the protection of the e5 pawn. And if f takes g5, d takes e5. And as hard as that is to see, and it's a very much an engine shot here that I have the luxury of seeing, it actually makes sense philosophically with the points I've been making, which is when your opponent has a huge center, you have to strike back on the square and the color complexes of which they could be weak. And when you have a dark square bishop, like a bishop on g7, striking with g5 and c5 and e5, these are the things that everyone has been doing in the King's Indian for years, and there's reasons for that. It's because you have to pry open on the color complex that has the most potential to give your pieces more squares. More squares lead to better tactics, etc., etc. So the fact that black had g5 there, for those of you who are strong enough players and really interested, want to back up and look at the move 12 g5 for black, it was an interesting shot, and it philosophically, my point is, it makes sense to look for moves like that, knowing that if you don't find ways before your opponent starts doing what Erigaisi's doing, which is using their pawns to kick your pieces around big time, you can get yourself in big trouble. I love knight takes d5. That is the best move there. If f takes e5 was played, e7 was hanging. That means that g5 now comes not as an aggressive way to undermine the center, but as a necessary move to get rid of that frickin' Averbach dark square bishop. Can I say frickin' Averbach dark square bishop? Holy bejesus snaps, I just did. I said frickin' Averbach bishop. Finally, it's off of the h4 d8 diagonal, but guess what? Say hello to my little friend on the g1 a7 diagonal, and if I don't know any better, f5 might not have solved the problems there for you, buddy. Anton Korobov, by the way, loving the hair, loving the hair, loving the hair, but not loving the a7 pawn. It is gone. Rook a8, bishop to b6. That's a pawn that doesn't just fall, and you get to kind of thank the eval bar for giving you a higher advantage. It also freed up the b6 square. So that's a pawn that, when it falls, actually makes white's position even better. And here comes g4. This is getting really, really rough for Korobov. That kind of move means that if you play f4, e4 is forever open. If you take it, bishop takes g4. Now the e6 knight is pinned. The white king in the center makes you a teeny bit uneasy. But what do you do here? Bishop takes e6 is maybe a threat. G5 is hanging. He plays king h8 so that maybe he could take on e5 with the bishop, and then g5 wouldn't have been falling with check. But I'm guessing, oh my gosh, h4, right? Push him, baby. h4, queen to c6 hits the c4 pawn. But probably white should just take on g5. If you take on g5 and g6, hg5, queen c4, g6, I think you're getting mated on h7. H takes g5 seems to be the perfect move here, and absolutely no reason not to play it. But queen c6 is hard because it threatens c4, and your human instincts are like, look, I'm totally winning. Why give counterplay at all, right? Let me just play a move like b3 to defend the c4 pawn, and then I'll get back to things. But, okay, as I have the engine in front of me here, if you play b3, there's a shocking move here for black. Black actually has the move knight 8 to c7 here, which threatens to take d5 and then win b6, and that actually would have made the position completely wild. Instead, Korobov takes e5, but that reopens the door for h takes g5 to be pretty nasty. In this position, Erigaisi has to be calculating h takes g5, bishop takes a1, and then g6. And he does indeed calculate it, recognizes that this is more than enough to checkmate my opponent. G6 is too strong, too weak, too slow is the black king side here. Rook takes h7 and knight takes e7 is mate, by the way. So not really anything black can do to stop that. You could put the knight on f6 because the d5 knight is pinned, and he does do that. If the knight on d5 takes f6, queen takes h1 would be with check. But still, there's a lot of firepower here, including the queen on d2, which she's been patiently waiting for an h-file to explode on. Thank you, Eminem, back when your music was relevant. Incredibly inappropriate. Probably wouldn't survive in today's PC cancel culture. What am I talking about right now? But anyway, thank you, Eminem, for patiently waiting for some tracks to explode on and delivering back when Marshall mattered. Oh my God, that was a sick line. Okay, no, queen h6, here we go. Queen takes h7, check is coming. Oh, he blunders it, rook takes a2. We get a queen sack for mate. Yes, smile, young man, you've earned it. Queen takes h7. If rook takes h7, king to g8, there would have been knight takes e7, mate. Arjun Erigaisi, not just a fluke that he had a good tournament to end 2021. As you know, at the timing of this video being published, Arjun Erigaisi has become one of the absolute rising stars in the game, a monster to contend with, and you have a few more videos to contend with. Go ahead and pick your flavor flav, choose which other Blitz commentary video you want to bounce to next, whether it's me or Danya on the call. Hope you're enjoying this series, and we'll see you around on Chess.com.